before I get too deep into it, I want to talk very sort of high level about this principle here. So what is sales? I've asked this before, and there's different ways to think about this. Does someone want to take a shot at, like, to them, what they feel like maybe what sales is?
I'll give it a try.
Go ahead, Zach.
I would just say fulfilling a need.
Fulfilling a need. Got it.
Yeah,
that's good.
Connecting a solution to a problem.
Got it. Very good.
I also think it's an exchange of something. Somebody's giving you something, and you're giving them something. So
yeah,
exchange,
that works
basically.
Some type of exchange. Yeah, and that, again, this is not, most of our training doesn't get this conceptual. There's a reason I picked a philosophy statue for this, but I wanted to talk about this in terms of how it informs the idea here. So my first commission-only sales role was selling life insurance, that company was very, very transactional. And that's when they started talking about this idea, and this helped inform the vivid selling framework for me, this progression of how I think about sales and how I think about asking questions to guide the prospect to making their own decision. So the first thing they all talked about in that very sort of pain-focused thing of trying to sell life insurance over the phone to New York Union members who weren't expecting a call and didn't want to talk about what would happen if they died. It was a high turnover in that role, and the line was, sales is the transference of energy. There's a lot of that because, like, we need to keep the energy up. There's a lot of hitting the phones and calling people who don't want to talk to you. And so, like, you got to be energetic, they'll be energetic. That was sort of their broad way of approaching that. And then I heard someone sort of maybe accidentally or just in that same company describe it a little bit differently, which is sales is a transference of emotion. It doesn't have to be your energy. It could just be the emotion you're trying to transfer. Because a lot of times when we're talking about life insurance, you want to get people actually imagining what it would be like for their family if they didn't come home tomorrow. And that's a tough emotion to go through, actually imagining that thought. And then I heard, I believe it was Jordan Belfort, the Wolf of Wall Street himself, say this line, I don't know, in a book or on a podcast or something, which is an elaboration on the idea. He said, sales is the transference of emotion, and that emotion is certainty. And that made a lot more sense to me. I was like, oh, I think that's starting to click. It's not just any emotion, I'm transferring certainty. But then I realized something I think pretty significant, which is that even that's not quite right. Because what matters is not that I was certain and then transferred my certainty. All that matters is that you were certain. It doesn't matter if I'm hesitant, if I believe this product works, if I think this is the best thing ever. Oh my gosh, you need life insurance so much. I can't wait to sell you solar panels. I got the best cash offer in the world. I want to buy your house. That doesn't matter. All that matters is that when we finish our conversation, you feel certain. It didn't matter what energy I brought to that exchange. And so I would say sales is the creation of certainty. It's not that I have to have high levels of energy for you to feel certain. I just have to figure out what makes the most sense for you to create your own level of certainty, to want to take an action, to change something, to make a decision to do something. And that certainty, sometimes I can be like, well, I don't think this is going to work for you. And some personality types, for them, that's what they need to be like, no, we won't make this work, versus this is the best thing ever, you need this, and then some personality types get turned off. So understanding at a higher level, I just want to make sure the prospect, the person I'm talking to, feels that level of certainty themselves. That was a really key point for me and led me ultimately to this approach here of building out this framework. So I wanted to give that sort of that higher level view to paint a picture here. So why have a framework at all? Well, there's three main benefits to thinking about a framework in sales. One is just consistency. So a sales framework, it provides a straightforward plan, enabling salespeople to handle opportunities effectively, and you can achieve consistent, dependable results. This is a big thing that a lot of people in sales talk about when they don't have some type of process that they follow, that their consistency isn't there. And what happens when you don't have consistency, you're not efficient. So when you have a clear path to follow, when you know I do this one thing the same way every time, if I want to make a change to how to deal with something, I'm not changing my whole consultation, my whole presentation, however you sell. I only have to change one thing because I run enough of it the same consistently. And that doesn't mean reading a script and saying the same thing word for word, but I understand how I move through a process, going from A to B to C to all the way down to Z. Like, that's what my process looks like, so that if I want to change something, I know I only got to change this little part here instead of moving around all these different things. And fundamentally, you're more effective when you do this. If you are consistent in how you run your process, not only can you more efficiently change things, according to Salesforce research, reps who follow a structured sales process, who have some type of way they move through the system, rather than I'm going to rely on my charisma, I'm going to rely on how great I am of a connector, of a person who can talk to other people. They go, no, I've got a framework and I run through this framework and I iterate on that. The people who follow that are 33% more likely to be high performers, which I believe in this context is the top 10%, than those who don't. So if someone's saying, if they're in the top 10% of salespeople at any organization, that organization is even remotely okay, they're making great money. So if someone's making great money as a salesperson, having conversations where revenue is on the line, chances are they can say they have some type of process. I remember the reason I bought Camry I'm driving around is because I had a Honda for a long time. I just didn't feel like buying another Honda. That was literally the reason I decided to go to Toyota. It was that simple. It was just like, oh, I can't buy another Honda after already having one Honda. It was truly an emotional, there was no process. If I went into the dealership, a Honda dealership, they couldn't have convinced me about how great a Honda is. The same way that the reason I bought a Camry wasn't because I'm like, oh, I'm tired, I don't want to buy an Accord. Accords suck. It's no, it has nothing to do with that. It was truly an emotional thing. So when you're focusing on the features and benefits of anything, you are missing a lot of times what's really important to the person. So, and there's also this other aspect which is really key, which is sometimes having a high level of expertise about something can be the enemy in selling. What happens then is that if you understand something so well that you want to finish the prospect sentence, if someone's like, yeah, I'm going into, I got a foreclosure notice, and you go, oh, let me tell you that everything's going to happen here and everything's going to, everything that you need to do, let me explain these things to you. You run the risk when you are an extreme expert in your field of assuming too much and not asking the questions to actually figure out what the prospect is trying to accomplish, or more importantly, what will cause them to take action to accomplish that thing anyway. So even though you might tell them all these things, and this happened, I'll say, with someone I was training, I mean, we're literally selling sales training. He was giving too much advice about how to fix a problem in a sales process. And I was like, and I was listening to a call, I was like, you've just been telling him all his answers to things without asking him the questions of what's important to him. And so it never felt like this guy, it was unique to this guy. And I was like, all right, great, thanks for all that. And he hopped off the phone. He was like, oh shoot, I couldn't tell him anything because all we do is just give him advice. And here's the other thing, not only did we give him advice, the guy's not gonna do any of it because he didn't invest anything in that process. He just got a free consultation from some sales guy he doesn't know. And so when you become an expert, you run the risk of telling rather than asking. And what happens then, even if you were telling someone perfect advice, we think about, well, why would I not want to tell the prospect what they could do? Isn't this a benefit to them? What happens when you're telling them is that they don't feel like this is their decision. It's not their own words coming out of their mouth for how they want to get this done. That principle applies all throughout the sales process. What they hear is, here's what we can do for you, which I would argue, love putting an X over my slides. That's not the way to go about this. I've used the slide on the things because I love doing this. So I hear this, listen to how great I am. This is like the big red flag. They're not hearing this is what's important to you. This is what matters to you. They're simply here. And I picked this slide for a reason. That's every time I have this. They imagine the classic Academy Award speech. Like, I'd like to thank the Academy. I'm the best salesperson. I'm such an expert, rather than going, what's important to you? How can I make sure I can get this done?